Hey, good day, everybody. I'm Steve Farrell, a co-founder and the worldwide executive director of Humanities Team. I'm coming to you live from our studio here in Boulder, Colorado. As you can see on the screen here, I've got a very distinguished guest with me, Ken D. Foster. He's going to be with me for the hour. I'm going to give him a proper introduction in a moment. So this is a live program and invite. So big shout out to Ken Foster's friends and colleagues, partners, Humanities Team, friends, colleagues, partners, teammates, all of our friends that are right here in the green room with us, our Humanities Stream Plus friends, and we can see some of you on screen, so big shout out to all of you. And then John Raymer and the Sign Network, shout out to all of you. If you go to sign.network, you can learn about John Raymer's organization. Okay, so our theme here today is we're giving you a sneak peek. This is actually the very first unveiling of a book that's been years in the works. It's a book that is a 50-year journey. I won't share more here until just a few minutes from now when Ken and I get into it. But I think it'll be pretty intriguing, and I think it might offer a few tools to people that are on the conscious journey as well. Okay, so let me give Ken a proper introduction as we get started. Ken D. Foster is a keynote speaker, best-selling author, business strategist, and news personality who owns a broadcast and media production company. He is the executive producer and host of the Voices of Courage show, syndicated on TV, podcast, plus radio and broadcast in 185 countries. He specializes in working with people who are committed to leveling up their lives, maximizing their highest potential, and contributing to making the world a better place. Ken is a change maker who pushes the envelope and challenges audiences to think differently, to see the unseeable, to know the unknowable, and do the impossible. And you can learn more at kendfoster.com. Okay, so Ken, thank you for being with me here today. And wow, really looking forward to this very first unveiling, this lifting of the curtain on this new book.
I'm completely honored to be here with you, Steve, and to be able to interview you and go in depth a little bit about your we want to know your mind. We want to know what makes you tick. We want to know why this book came out, how it came out, how it can really benefit the audience, and how it will help us to understand ourselves better and really come into that oneness consciousness in a much greater way. So I got lots of questions for you today. It's going to be really fun.
Awesome. Yes. Well, looking forward to it. This book, again, was years in the making. It's a true story, you know, a 50-year true story, and there's quite a lot that you put into that. But we wanted to get it out in the world because everybody that's watching, you know, we're on this conscious journey, and the journey can be somewhat challenging. So there's a lot of lessons learned along the way that I think will provide tools to people.
Well, I know it well, and you want to jump right in? Are we ready to take a deep dive into Steve Farrell's world here?
Let's take the deep dive. Let's go.
All righty. Well, it's my pleasure to be able to be here with you and interview you with this amazing book that's coming into the world. You know, I'd like to kind of skip back a little bit. When you what was it? You know, I know somewhere around 12, 13 years old, you started to wake up. Can you, let's just start there a little bit. Where were you then? What was happening in your life back then?
So yeah, the book starts actually where I'm 12 years old. My mom was divorced at that time. And I had 6 brothers and sisters. So there were 7 of us, and my mom, who worked full time, divorced, living in a fairly small home. So there at 12 years old, you know, I got my first job. It was a paper route, and then I had every job after that. You name them, you know, I had them, one after the other. True for me and my sibling. It's how a lot of us grew up, right? This was in the 70s that I was going through high school, finishing 7th and 8th grade, going through high school. And so it starts there, you know, and then kind of long hair, all of the things that were happening, hitchhiking around the country, there right after my sophomore year in high school. So I was just turning 17. So yeah, I tell that whole story that is really it's how it's how most of my friends grow up, except that with the divorced parents and a mom that had 7 kids working full time. It was a little different in that way because we all had full time jobs and things to pay for our clothes and stuff.
Well, a lot of that shaped your life. A lot, just let's just start at that point. Like, what do you think it was at that point in time that really shaped you to become the person that you are today? Where did that start? What was that consciousness that was coming through you? And you're a kid, you're out doing your thing, but there's something that's happening at that time. What is it?
So one is just tied to having these jobs, and I needed braces, so I paid for my own braces, and my parents didn't have the money to do that, so we found an orthodontist that was willing to take monthly payments, so I could pay down these braces that I needed. So you do learn responsibility at a very young age when you're having start jobs there in the 4th grade, moving up. So that would be one of the defining things.
That's good. Well, let me ask you. Okay, so let's take a jump
sure.
now. Okay, now you're in Silicon Valley. We're going to take a big jump. Okay, this is many years down the road. Now you're in Silicon Valley. You're very successful in Silicon Valley. What is it that all of a sudden shifts and you're thinking, I need to maybe leave here. I need to do something bigger in my life. What was going on there?
Yeah, and let me give you the run up to Silicon Valley too, because this is a very unlikely path, I will say. So where you've got me, 6 sibling, divorced parents, little home, growing up like this, and then I go to Silicon Valley, as you mentioned. Now, then I happen to be in the right place at the right time, starting 2 companies from scratch, used furniture, 2 guys in an executive suite, the first company. And it went to 75 million in revenue. And then we created a second company inside of that one that inside of 2 years went to 75 million in revenue. And then I'm in the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. And then I graduated and went to the Young Presidents Organization. And if you're familiar with the Young Presidents Organization, that is kind of the who's who, and young leaders that are out in the world. So, for example, in my YPO chapter, Gavin Newsom, the current governor of California, the guy that runs the largest real estate equity investment trust in the world, Hamid Moghadam, was in my chapter. The woman who was the marketing genius for Steve Jobs, Andy Cunningham, was in my chapter. This is just 3. So, you got this, I'll call it unlikely story, where you're going from my kind of background into the pinnacle of wealth creation in Silicon Valley, where all of of course, I'm working there with venture capitalists in the second company. So just to bring that in, it was an extraordinary, you could call it unlikely thing that would happen, where I was exposed to the private jets and the private ski resorts and all of that kind of stuff. So now, then, as you mentioned, yes, then there was this big U-turn that happened, which is your question. So what happened? And what happened is during the 1990s, in the mid-1990s, my particular awakening device, and we all have them, was reading Conversations with God, Book 1. So came out in 1995. And then this God of my understanding, you were asking earlier, Ken, what was it like at 12 and what was going on? One of the things I didn't get to there is I had felt actually from a very young age this loving deity that would help me and guide me and support me my whole life. And which is unusual too, because I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church, and I have to say that the Catholic Church that was not the presentation of God there. It was with the confessional and all of the things going on. It was not this unconditionally loving, benevolent God, that you come to know. Unfortunately, more so now with Pope Francis, but not so much then.
But let me ask you that. In spite of that, you still felt something. You still had this connection. That's what I'm hearing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah. No, I had a connection. I felt that this is why, I leave. One of the things that was in this in between here is, I leave the Virginia. I fly to the West Coast to San Francisco as a young man, just right out of college, and and then I'm finding my way. With the IBM first, then I go start these companies, and then I come into this conscious journey. Uh, and I didn't know anybody. So I'm just a young person in San Francisco with no money, no, I'll call it net underneath of me. So I didn't have a family with money. If I wiped out, I was, it's going to be a big wipeout. So I was being
You're
very
going to be on
thoughtful,
the
very
street.
careful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Steve, okay. So let's get okay, you're in Silicon Valley because this all has to do with the foundation of why this book came into being. And I think this is an important question. At what point did all of a sudden the Silicon Valley stop working and you're connecting with, the conversations with God, with the book, you're thinking outside the box already, but now you're exploring deeply the spiritual side of yourself is what I'm getting. It's coming into being. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah. And also the American dream was also getting crystal clear to me in terms of what that was, where I was in, again, the center of wealth creation. I was there with the people that were making the mega $1 million and what their lives were like. So a lot of things were coming into focus for me then.
Okay. So what would you say? What was the shift that now you're leaving Silicon Valley? You've decided to do something different, and now there's a part here where I don't know what happened with you and Neil Donald Walsh, the author of Conversations with God, but something happened, and now you're there. What's going on?
So what's going on is, first on the American dream side, part of what the American dream is that is beautiful for people all over the planet, all 8 billion people, is this notion of equal access to higher education and higher opportunity. And we want that for all 8 billion people on the planet. But what I found in the American dream is it's actually a ladder. And first you climb to that level and it's beautiful and we want it for everybody. But what I found is, as you keep climbing up that ladder, often what happens is the attention turns to power, fame, and fortune, where there's a strong desire in Silicon Valley of, really hitting the home run, going really big, getting that top line revenue to 50 million and then 100 million and then 500 million and then a billion. It just keeps going. It's a ladder that just you keep climbing is with this power, fame, and fortune thing. And I could see, I'm looking out in the world, candidly, in the mid-1990s, it was not that different from the world that we look out on today. There were huge challenges in terms of inequality, in terms of climate change, in terms of all of these war, et cetera. All of these things were going on. So part of what was happening for me is I was looking at this whole, I'll call it mirage, when you get to those upper tiers of the American dream, where you're just always wanting more, always wanting more. And as you were climbing to more, it was putting more stress on your relationship with your partner, with your kids, with your coworkers, with your friends. More stress where they could, where you're marginalizing, in a sense, those relationships because you're really trying to drive your top and bottom line growth, your stock price, and all of these things. Your future, your power, fame, and fortune. So, and the world was in huge need. So this was the backdrop then. Now, against that backdrop, this Conversations with God, book 1, and then book 2 and book 3. There actually are 9 now, Conversations with God books, where Neil is convening what I'm going to call the big public conversation. As he mentions, we all are having conversations with God all the time. There's no separation. Right in this very moment, God or the divine or source, whatever we want to call that, is right here within, right? There is no separation at all, zero, right? But there was this big conversation that was explaining this is the opportunity in life, this is who you really are, which is that we are the divine or source's offspring, right? We are emanations of the one, right? This is the story that is revealed to us. It's a whole new narrative that most of us didn't grow up with. And of course, this means now that the whole Rumi thing, right? That we're not just a drop in the ocean. We are the ocean in a drop, right? Oh, down at the level, cellular level, everything that is the divine, that is the creator of the universe, is within us. So when there's a cut right on your hand or your foot, we don't have to consciously think about it. Bam, the whole body goes to work to heal that cut, right? Is just one small example.
When we were, in the green room, we were talking a little bit. And, you had asked me, or you had made the comment that, waking up on the spiritual path, that shift from, going and not knowing you. This is a challenge. Let's call it, from where you were into this structured money making, fame and richness, and the more is better, and that mindset. Where was your shift? What happened there?
So it was this big decision, I think, that we all have to make on the conscious journey, that we're both actually, but we are principally in my case, son of a dad, Joe, a mom, Linda, or I am principally offspring of the creator of the entire universe, of God, of the divine, an emanation of the one, with everlasting life, with unlimited potential. I'm principally one or the other. And when we decide on the conscious journey, we choose the latter. We say, my God, yes, of course, my parents delivered me into this world, but it wasn't some random lucky sperm event. It was, I actually have everlasting life. I've had hundreds of lives going back and forth between the physical and non-physical world where we really get that. So I made that choice. Now, you said, now what kind of challenges did that pose? There were huge challenges, and I'm guessing everybody here watching can relate. Because when that moment came, and when I shared with my coworkers and with my friends in the YPO and my friends in the neighborhood and so on, that I was going to leave money-making pursuits and sell everything and commit myself to family and this spiritual path, this conscious journey, people thought, including my own family, brothers and sisters, they thought I had lost my mind. I had a brother fly out and say, my older brother, talk to me and say, Steve, my God, you've hit this home run here in Silicon Valley. You want to leave and you want to go do this spiritual work? Like, are you serious? What could one guy ever do, right? So there were tremendous challenges in that way, as I was, people still loved me for who I was, but doubting me in terms of life decisions that I was making, concerned about me, that I might just fall off the edge of the planet here as I was pursuing something that didn't make any sense at all.
I can so relate to that. Listen, what you and Neil, when did you guys? Okay, let's move it up a little bit here, because I want to get to the book, A New Universal Dream. We're getting to the universal dream, but I think the foundation was really important put in there, Steve. So let's move it. You and Neil meet. What's happening with that? What's going on?
So Neil, back then in the 90s, was reaching out through his newsletter to people and with questions of, hey, has anybody done this or doing this? And one of his newsletters featured the question. It said, is there anybody out there that's running a business that is somewhat substantial, that's actually putting the conversations with God wisdom into practice? Now, my belief, which I was very off in this, was that I was not the only one, that people all over the world, all of us were changing our lives at once, and business now was going in this whole new conscious and spiritual direction that we, it was after all, the Conversations with God was a New York Times bestseller, right? 37 weeks on the bestseller list. Everybody was reading it. Larry King Live, ABC, NBC, CBS, they were all interviewing Neil. The book was on everybody's bedstand. My assumption was that people were reading that wisdom and going, oh my God, we are not just physical bodies, we are spiritual beings inhabiting a body, and making changes to their lives, right? This was my assumption. So I didn't think it was a big deal when I responded to Neil's newsletter and I said, yeah, I am, and we've got a pretty substantial business and we've brought a lot of these concepts into the business. We're actually getting even more growth because of these concepts. I didn't think I was standing out at all. As it turned out, I was one of the few, and Neil invited me and my wife to fly up to where he lives in Oregon and meet him and have dinner with him and meet his staff and stuff.
Wow. Well, that kind of changed the course of your life, is what I'm guessing. So when you met with Neil and then when did you guys decide to work together to start the humanities team and that piece? Where did that all happen? And what were you thinking at the time? That's what I want.
Yeah, we didn't start humanities team until June 2003. And I met him in 1999, 4 years earlier. So when I was up there, I said, hey, Neil, if you want some free, coach consulting on business or organizational things, that is what I've been doing, and I'd be happy to be a consultant to you at no charge. And he said, well, could you lead a planning session? I said, sure. And I went up and led his organizational planning session. I did little things like that, flying up, helping out with things. I helped him with a fundraiser. In the meantime, I lost all of my passion for business, sold all of my assets, left the YPO, just closed all of that down in 2001, 2 years before we started Humanities Team. And then in the spring of 2003, Neil reaches out to me and says, hey, there's a Conversations with God book that's coming out called Tomorrow's God, where you can read about the founding of a brand new organization that, where God and I are actually talking about starting a movement, a global movement. And would you like to come up to my home in March of 2003 to help me, kind of think out what Humanities Team might be, and those that resonate can even help launch it. So I was one of 20 that flew up there in March 2003. I was the only one that said I'm in, so I helped them launch it in June 2003. I took on responsibility for the United States initially, right at the launch, and then 6 months later, he said, hey, I do summits and seminars, and my team can't really do everything, and would you be open to leading the worldwide, humanities team, and which I did take on at that time.
Wow, fascinating. Had no idea that story, and so I really appreciate you sharing that with us. All right, listen, you have a new universal dream, and I'd like you to share that universal dream. And we're going to talk about the book. I don't know if the team in the back can put the book up on the screen somewhere, but we'd love them to do that if they can. But let's dive into the new universal dream. What is that, Steve? Why did you write it, and how will people benefit from it? Let's go.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we can put up that graphic. I don't think this is where poor Jim Gray, who he's going to find it. So we'll put it up in a minute. So this is the book that is coming out now. You can actually pre-order it now from Amazon. It's called A New Universal Dream. You can go to anewuniversaldream.com, or you can go to stevefarrell.org. You can read about the book and read the first chapters. And there's even actually a $299 bonus for people I give a free masterclass away for the people that buy the $18.99 book. So it's a pretty good deal, more than 10x, in terms of bonus there. And it's a real masterclass. It's pretty huge. So you can see all of that on the website. But the book, A New Universal Dream. So A New Universal Dream is what scientists are affirming now is true. So it's living into ultimate reality that scientists are affirming is true. And when I say scientists, I do mean scientists. So we can go all the way back to Plato and Hippocrates in 430 BCE, right? And then we can come up to the present time in October of last year, the Nobel Prize for Physics, right, was for entanglement. There were 3 scientists that won. Entanglement is a feature of oneness, right? It's where you demonstrate that on one side of the cosmos, there's something going on that's affecting something on another side of the cosmos, and there is no physical connection at all. So this is one of the features of what oneness is. And then there's Einstein. There's the book on the screen, so you can see A New Universal Dream. There's a little, on the back, there's a little summary, and then people like Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Ken Honda and some others wrote a nice testimony on the book. You'll see even more testimonies actually on the site when you go to stevefarrell.org. Sir James Jeans, Bohm, I mentioned Einstein. If you go to our humanities team, changinghumanitiesfuture.org, if you go to our website there, and then you come down, it says confirmations of a conscious reality. There's a hyperlink. When you click on that hyperlink, it brings in all of these scientists that I'm referencing and many more. And what they're affirming is true, that actually all of the cosmos is an energy field. It's a vibrational field. And it's one presence. So, and it's in perfect harmony, in perfect peace. So one of the things we probably even heard growing up is that there's this universal intelligence that's animating all of life, right? So that probably doesn't sound too unfamiliar. A universal intelligence animating all of life. So you could call it a universal consciousness, or you could call it a universal loving presence that's animating all of life. So this is saying the same thing. There's one presence. We're all emanations of that one. This new universal dream is very simply, all it's doing is it's inviting us to live into this ultimate reality. If we're part of this one. Now, Sim Harriman, who's a physicist, likes to say, we're sovereign to this one body, he says. So he says, as you walk around,
here's one of the benefits, I believe, of working with this material and reading this book and really starting to realize these concepts within our own lives, is that when we change our perception, we change how we see the world. The world becomes richer. It can be. It's when you're talking about the oneness perception. It becomes richer and more fulfilling, and there's much more connection that we see within our own sphere of influence. So there's a lot. This isn't just. I just want to ground it a little bit, Steve. This isn't just the theory. This is how we apply these. We realize these concepts in our lives, and things really change. They change tremendously. So I'm just appreciative you're putting this in the world so that we have a way to ground it into reality, right?
Yeah, well, boy, I mean, it couldn't be more true what you're sharing. So, and even just to emphasize that point, even if the world didn't have all of these challenges going on, which it does, an existential crisis is coming up again and again and again. But even if the world were in just fantastic shape and the world didn't need us to do anything, for our own reasons, for our own individual reasons, we would want to embrace this conscious journey. Because as you mentioned, and this is what I learned on this path through Silicon Valley, is if you want to see and understand and live into real prosperity, real abundance, real deliciousness of life, it's the conscious journey. It is not that power, fame, and fortune ladder. It is not. I can promise you that because I was there. But it is this, and I experience it. You experience it. I'm guessing people here on the that are watching who are conscious are saying, "Yeah, no, I true for me too." So, and the thing is, Einstein said 75 years ago, as he's addressing this thing that we're talking about, he said, "A human being is a part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself as thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is kind of a prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. Well, there you got it, right? I mean, this is a precise description of why we start into this conscious journey. He's saying ultimate reality is this, but we don't see it. We're walking around with this optical delusion thinking everything is separate. And that's what's creating such an incredibly challenging roller coaster lifestyle and all of these horrible things out in the world. It's microcosm, macrocosm. When our lifestyle is up and down like this, the whole world is, they're all together, right? But then when we start living consciously in this whole loving presence thing and really supporting the whole and being in service and things, well, the world starts getting that way too, right? So that's the work of Humanity's Team, which is this book is the story of Humanity's Team also, from the very beginning, its founding, and 20 years ago to today.
Well, I really like that a lot, and I think what a lot of us are hearing as you're sharing this is that there's hope for the world. there's goodness coming into the world more and more as each one of us does the work that we need to do to really awaken that inner presence, that inner power, that inner force that is something within us. It's not something we're out there chasing anymore. We're actually experiencing it from within. And that's really, I think, a lot around Humanity's Team. My experience with the team is that the team is there to be of service, to help people grow, to change, to awaken, to learn, to be the best versions of themselves without chasing something, right? It's more of a remembering journey for so many at Humanity's Team. And you're bringing in this work, this beautiful new book, the New Universal Dream, which it's interesting with the book. Inside of us, we all have the blueprint of the dream, but I believe we've all forgotten the dream. And so this works like these really help us to remember the dream. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that was really why I wrote the book. And what I did in the book is, because it really was written not so much to tell people about me, because I'm not a famous person. It was written more because on this journey, I learned a lot. I mean, a lot. And so all along the way, I stop in the book and I say, okay, this is what I learned here. This is what's really serving me, and this may be a tool as you're navigating your own conscious journey. So I'm doing that throughout the book. And as we've been bringing out here, this is not a simple, easy path to navigate, especially in the early days. It's extremely challenging. So I hope that it can be of some use to people that are on this journey.
Well, let's talk about the journey a bit, Steve. I want you to define, if you would, for our audience, conscious living. What does that really mean?
So conscious living is we can operate. Yeah. So we could operate from the logic center of our mind or from the wisdom center of our soul. If, the way Ken Wilber likes to talk about this with his all quadrants, all levels model is we can just look at the exterior world, which is logic center of the mind, and which is kind of how it works today. And he says we have a flat land today because everything's based on the exterior, external world. Or he says, but that's a real problem because we're leaving out the interior, right? And he's profoundly correct. When we don't and have this whole conscious living thing is anchored. It's anchored in our interior. It's anchored in this wisdom center of our soul, which might sound rather abstract, but just stay with me for a second. Right now, just look out your window if you're anywhere near nature, and just see as you connect with it and create a little resonance circuit with it, just see how that's affecting you. Or when you're doing yoga, or you're sitting there and holding your lover or kid's hands, or petting your dog, or there are many different, but where you come into resonance with this whole intelligence that's animating all of life. Right? There are many ways to do it, through meditation and prayer, the ways I just suggested. So, and where we come into connection with and resonance with that universal intelligence, which is nature, which is divine, it's God, it's love, it's It's all of these things. When we come into resonance with it, we naturally would just drop down to hear more of the wisdom center of the soul. It's more of a way of living where it's more of a feeling way of living as opposed to a thinking way of living. Decisions start presenting themselves and you say, give me a moment to kind of feel into that, right? I didn't always do that. Back in my early Silicon Valley days, I would say, let me think about that, and I'd make a snap thinking type decision. So this is one of the biggies. Now, another thing that we could get into now or later in this program, Ken, related to this is the new spirituality and what that is, which is a huge part of what conscious living is.
Well, I'd like to jump into the new spirituality with you. And I think, we're talking about new choices. We're talking about changing up belief systems that have been in our psyche for generations. And, one of the quotes that Einstein, I think is an important quote. He said that the most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or a hostile universe. I know growing up, I felt it was a hostile universe. But when I shifted that and really embraced that, things changed. So let's use that quote to kind of move us into this new territory we're going to talk about.
Yeah, beautiful. And this is really, when I talk about this universal intelligence animating all of life and resonance with nature and things, it's exactly that, where what we're feeling into is a universe that is in cooperation, in collaboration, that is in peace and bliss. It is not a violent universe. And he was profoundly correct in this, that it's the biggest decision we make. What do you believe? Because if you think that it's violent and in conflict and so on, your life will be that. And if you think that it's more in cooperation and harmony, etc., your life will be that. So this is, when we talk about the new spirituality, this is what we're talking about, is anchoring ourselves to ultimate reality and understanding what the scientists are now saying. The Resonance Science Foundation, go to their website. They're saying it's a universe, a cosmos in perfect harmony and bliss, and that everything from quantum scale protons and atoms to cosmological objects, galaxies, physical and non-physical, everything in between, that it's all one, and its basis is this: harmony, cooperation, collaboration. So now the new spirituality is actually, this is what part of this whole deliciousness of living thing, because in the new spirituality, this interior thing is really going on. We're taking the time at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, throughout the day, to really be in this communion, I'll call it, with Source. Well, the way Neil frames it from the Conversations with God standpoint, it's renewing and restoring our connection with God and each other. That is his definition of the new spirituality. I am saying the same thing. We can put science terms around it. We don't have to use God. We can use universe, source, love, life. There are lots of terms. But we're now coming back into, we are, just like Nassim Haramein says, we are sovereign to this one body. This is what there's a whole, and we're a cell or a wave, onto this ocean. And we're living in this communion state with it, where we've renewed and restored our connection with it, our communion with it. And it's it puts us in a being state that is beautiful. And then all of our doing comes from this being state. So it's what's most important, really, when we talk about conscious living, is this new spirituality that's emerging. And my hope, Ken, is whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Mormon or an atheist, see, this new spirituality works the same way. All we're doing is we're just saying, go within. If it's Jesus, if it's Muhammad, if it's Buddha, whoever it is, go within. There's no separation, and commune with that, and allow this communing to be your being state, and you'll operate. All of your doing will come from that being state, and it's a being state of just what you said, a universe that's in harmony, in cooperation, in collaboration, all of these good things.
Well, I studied Yogananda for years, Paramahansa Yogananda. He brought one of the premier individuals that brought meditation into the world back in the 1920s in the United States. So it was already in the world, but in the United States. But what we're talking here, because I love what you said, it's a universal concept. Meditation is a very starting phase for people, right? Because what Steve is talking about here, and I want to go a little deeper, and that's why I'm mentioning it, is taking the meditation, or taking the what the yogis would call Sat Chit Ananda, Satchit Ananda, ever conscious, ever existing, ever new bliss, that place where we connect deep within us, and that meditation state that we get, but bringing it into the world and living from that place, living from a place of being. Steve, how do you live from a place of being and with all the challenges that come in the world on a continuous basis? And how is that addressed in the book? How is that addressed in the book?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
This is this new universal dream and the book leads into it. The very last chapter is called A New Universal Dream. So it's we step into it. But my journey from that 12-year-old kid 50 years ago to the man that I've become is the journey into the new universal dream, where even with all the things going on in the world, and I have 2 kids, and of course there are lots of things that are going on always in humanities team and out in the world, but this is ultimate reality is this. We're not trying to create something new of, let's create a universe in harmony and bliss. Let's create some new spirituality. No, this is ultimate reality. This is how the universe operates. All this is about is, instead of this optical delusion where we're walking around thinking we're seeing things and mirages where we're chasing things, all this new universal dream is let's just live into what is true now, ultimate reality that exists here now, and ground ourselves in that throughout the day. So we're not in this logic center of the mind roller coaster up and down and up and down. We're instead in this nice, mostly we're human, right? So we're going to have some interruption of bliss and peace, but in an overall, pretty nice place here throughout the day. And knowing there's no end of, there is no such thing as death in this, right? This is part of what conscious living is. There is no death. And my God, if anybody questions that, we work with the NDEers, near-death experience people, the mediums that are working with the afterlife all day and every day. And let me tell you, I can tell you with certainty, there is no such thing as death. And you can be trained through our humanities team programs to be communing with your loved ones that have passed, right? And angels and guides, etc. So there is no death. This is just a little chapter in our life right here. And wouldn't it be beautiful? Wow, if we lived into ultimate reality, we're not creating anything new. We're just going to live into it. And we're going to help this planet live into it. So not just our generation, but future generations have a beautiful home, which is this planet. And this whole existential crisis word, we get rid of this word. It doesn't have any relevance anymore. Why? Because the planet's waking up. It's living consciously. And as we know, when we live consciously, we can't start wars. We can't continue a climate change thing without remedying it. We could go right down the line, all of the challenges out in the world. We naturally heal those when we live consciously.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Steve, what, as a result of living consciously, do concepts like success go away? Do we not have success anymore? Or how would you redefine success from a conscious point of view?
Yeah, great question. So, and I've got a very different answer than I would have had, than the young man in the 20s when I was flying out to California. So success all has to do with, we're familiar with, there's this larger self with a capital S, right? Where we're part of a whole, where we understand this Nassim Harriman thing, we're part of a body, right? We're in service to that. Or the smaller self, which is how most of us grew up with, this is my body. I'll go to a grave someday. While I'm here, I'm gonna go get what I can go get, manifest destiny, all the things that in the Western world most of us grew up with. So what I found on this journey, which I described during my 50-year path, is that success for the smaller self is is a sugar high. You get the 50 million growth, and it is not enough. We've got to go for the 100 million. And it just keeps going. Like it's a mirage, that fame, fortune, and power journey. I didn't find any real success there. The success is this conscious journey where we're living into ultimate reality. We've healed our optical delusion. We understand, oh my God, this is really how the universe, it is friendly, my God, and we connect with it and commune with it, live inside of it, and then together we hold hands like we are here, inviting the whole world to live consciously so future generations have a beautiful planet like the one we grew up in, right? So success is not fleeting, it's not sugar high, it's not short term, it's not smaller self, it is larger self, it is in service to the whole. It is living in the new spirituality. It is understanding that we are eternal, everlasting beings, and that during our journey, we're going to nurture and bring good things to the lives that we live.
Yeah. Well, I might shift it from success to fulfillment. I think that's what I was hearing there. There was a shift I heard early in our conversation where you said, I went up and I was of service to Neil Donald Walsh and his organization. I was of service, when we got 20 people there and I was the one who stepped up. I personally can share that my life since 1993 has been a life of service, which has changed everything for me. Can we speak to service and what that means for humanity's team, for a new universal dream, the book itself, and maybe even yourself? Let's talk about this concept that changes lives completely if we really embrace it.
Yes, absolutely. Let me share too. We've got questions here we can get to if you want right after this here. But This is something, again, that naturally, it's an alchemical thing almost, that where we shift into that bigger self from that smaller self, when we go from logic center of the mind to wisdom center of the soul, when we walk through that door that's conscious, and then we look, right now, we look out on the world and we go, oh my God, the whole world is sacred. Everything is a part of the one, and let's live into these deeper values of this. So where these things happen, then what naturally happens is this whole in service thing. It's just like a cell in our body, right? Our finger on our hand or a toe on our foot. If you're a part of a larger whole, it's just what you do. You're actually made that way. The book gets into this, by the way, that our DNA is this, and this is why, in my opinion, when people achieve incredible wealth, there were some, not many, that went off in it's just all private jets and yachts and fine wines. And then you'll read about them, and it's kind of a sad story. Didn't work out very well, right? We've all read these stories, even ending in suicide in some cases, or shorter lifespans and things. Why? Okay, because we're not designed that way. We're not designed as a smaller self that lives that way. It just is not our DNA. We might not like that and say, oh, I don't like that I'm designed that way, but that's how we're designed. We are that. So but this new universal dream is just really understanding who we are and living into it and making just the most of this lifetime and future lifetimes that we're going to all be adventuring off to after this lifetime.
I love it. Well, okay. By the way, let's tell the audience where we can get the book, New Universal Dream. Where can they get the book, Steve? And then let's get the questions.
Yeah. So thank you. So if you go to newuniversaldream.com or go to stevefarrell.org, you'll see then this book. There are four chapters you can read for free to just kind of get a taste of the book. And then if you can pre-order the book now, and if you pre-order the book now, you'll get a receipt number from Amazon or whoever you pre-order it from. And you just take the receipt number on our site, enter the receipt number and your email address, and we'll load down the full masterclass. It's a $299 masterclass called Conscious Leadership. It's my masterclass, but I have Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Lynn McTaggart and Michael Beck with lots of leaders that come in as my guests during this masterclass. It's a phenomenal masterclass. So it's really quite a opportunity. $18.99 for the book, and you get a $299 masterclass. So now, you want me to get to some of these questions here, Ken?
I do. There was one that popped up here for me, and then I want you to get yours. But
Yeah.
I thought this was kind of funny, and it's also funny, and yet there may be somebody going through this challenge right now. The question was, what did you say to your older brother when he thought you lost your mind with marbles when you were letting go and selling off all your assets and getting out of Silicon Valley? Why don't we answer that for the audience?
Yeah. So, boy, I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. We were in my backyard. I was then living in Silicon Valley. And candidly, my brother was just being a sane person who he really loves me, cares about me. And it was like, oh my God, Steve, please don't jump off this cliff. That was his energy of just, oh my God, seriously, Steve, you can't, you're not going to be, I agree with you. The world's got challenges. We need to do something. But he says it's a boat like the Titanic that's going to slowly go down and you can't do anything about it. So don't throw your life away. And I said, Kevin, I mean, you make perfect sense. I get where you're coming from. And I know you're sharing this only for good reasons. But all I can say is I have this calling, right? There was a calling put on me back then that was just, I can't even describe how huge it was. But I knew I needed to do this. And I went to my wife, by the way, back in that same time frame, and she was marrying this entrepreneur and technology guy. And I said, Stephanie, I'm selling everything. I don't know that I'll ever have a paycheck for the rest of my life. And I hope you can, this can work and we can stay married. And fortunately, God led me to the right woman who said, hey, let's do this, let's go. And so, here we are all these years later with a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Wow, glad I asked that question. Steve, we're almost out of time. We've got about 8 minutes left. I'm not, I can't see all the questions. So if there's one that you wanted to get to, but I did want to get your final thoughts before we close out here. So is there another question that you can see that you wanted to answer?
Yeah, so let's see. This is from Guranam, and this is and Guranam's in the green room. And apologies if I mispronounced your name. It says, I love Humanities Team, bringing my community of consciousness and service to me. I woke up in 1979, wow, and have been on the path since. We need our pod to live it fully and show the model for wisdom and cooperation. So, wow, hats off to you, Guranam, because 1979, that was an early time frame for all of this. So you've been a real leader out there if you've been on this conscious journey, shining your light all these years. So, hooray! So now Sarah just says, "Thank you, Steve and Ken, for hosting in the awareness programs being presented here." So thanks, Sarah. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, listen. Let's get to the little. I want to know what your final thoughts, but more importantly, I want to know what your message to all of us is right now, Steve. What is the message to the world that you are sharing? And I know you've been weaving it through, but is there any final thoughts that you really have that would move this audience into their next level?
You bet. Yeah. Let me frame it this way. So for me, and what you'll get out of this 50-year journey is that you've heard the metaphor of what wall is our ladder leaning against, right? We've heard this metaphor before. And what I observed and what I was doing myself was leaning that ladder against really the wrong wall. It was a wall that was more the upper tiers of the American dream, of really creating success. And we were, a kind business. We were adopting a local high school and other nonprofits. We did really pretty good work in that way. But still, with the world in the shape that it's in today, and with this optical delusion thing, which is the key thing, right, that we address in Humanities Team, Conversations with God in the 9 books from beginning to end says, we are all one. And it was early out with that. There weren't so many books in the 90s and early 2000s that shared that. Today, they're everywhere. And all the scientists are coming out. I mentioned Nobel Prize for Physics even is coming straight into it now. Science is absolutely affirming, no, this is not some new age thing. This what the mystics have shared for eons of time is true. So if our ladder, if your ladder is leaning against a wall that isn't ultimate reality, or isn't all of what you would want it to be in terms of how you would create energy around you. You asked the question earlier, Ken, hey, days can be crazy. It's challenging. How do you stay centered in this, right? It's a good question. I mean, that's almost the ultimate question. And if we get our ladder against the right wall and we create these practices, where we're doing it not out of duty, but out of just support for ourselves, where we early in the morning and late at night, and however we do it during the day, remaining that place of connection with this friendly universe that Einstein described, with this universal intelligence that's animating all of us and all of life, where we stay communing with that, which is ultimate reality. The treasure, the deliciousness of life. One of the guys on humanities team actually goes now by Juicy Life is the name that he likes to go by. Guess why he picked that name, So if you want to live into it and you want to help create this incredible world where future generations aren't thinking about existential crises, that was history. I mean, that was back in the past. We have, we're on this conscious journey. We have moved past that. Just let's make sure our ladder's against the right wall and that we've got the right practices in our life to really live this fully.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing in depth with us today, Steve. It's been my joy to be able to interview you, and it's a new universal dream, and that's the message. That's the book, and we hope that everybody will go and pick up that book. Steve, thank you again. This has been really great. Any final thoughts?
No, thank you, Ken. Thanks so much for being my partner here on this program. Gratitude to you, brother. You'll see Ken and I together for other programs here coming up in the weeks and months ahead. So thank you. Ken is really an outstanding professional leader himself. And I mentioned kendfoster.com to learn more about Ken. And thanks for being here with me. And all of you viewers, we're back next week with another fabulous program, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, Wednesday next week. So be sure to join us. So love and peace and blessings. Oh, and we'll pull the camera back. I want to thank my team here, my partners and colleagues. Jim Gray is here in the studio. That's me on the couch. That's Jim over there with a hand out from behind the, hey, he's holding this whole thing down, making sure that we don't go down while we're talking. But also Nanette Kennedy and Garth Catterall, Dee Meyer, Andy Guski, Karen Watson. There are lots of people on the team here, humanities team, that make this program possible. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Okay, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being with us. Been a real pleasure.